Yes. All right. Yeah, I'll appreciate everyone if you be responsive in the chat, right? So please be responsive, right? That will make class more interactive. And all right, I can see a lot of people here. Nice. So okay. All right. So if you know me, let me just introduce myself very quickly, and then we can begin with the actual topic. So my name is Sabil. If you want, you can just uh, look at my profile on LinkedIn, right? So I have been working as a software engineer for around more than 3 years now, and I have been teaching main stack for around 4 years, right? So yeah, that's my brief introduction. Rest of the things you can explore by yourself. So let's talk about uh, good evening. Okay, lots of people here. Okay, I'm not looking at the chat right now, but I'll address your question later on. Let me just begin. We'll do the kind of Q&A session at the end of the uh, today's. Is only, yeah, I'm speaking in English only. Naveen. ठीक है, let's begin. Can you increase the mic volume? I cannot hear. Okay, my volume is not. 1 second. Can you hear me now? Is it better? Yes, you are clearly audible. ठीक है, बाकी लोग बोल रहे हैं clearly audible. Okay. Uh, all right. So let's begin. So we are in the today's session, we are more focused on creating an application, right? Especially using React, right? So all of you, you might have heard this term called React, uh, right? A lot. You might have seen this on YouTube or in all of these things. Just 1 second. ठीक है. Let's Okay. So you might have seen, you might have heard about this term that is React. Can anyone tell me what exactly it is? What is React? Anyone? पता है किसी को क्या होता है? Is there any prerequisite for this course? Yes, there is a prerequisite. You should be good with the JavaScript. Or if you are not good with the JavaScript and you are familiar with the programming language, you will at least get a hang of what we are discussing, right? You'll understand the things, not the exact syntax, but you'll understand the concepts that we are going to discuss. Okay. Uh, all right. A lot of people are saying it's a JS framework, JS library. React is a component-based JavaScript library. Right. So when we say library, right, there is a significant difference between the two, right? If you say a framework and if you say a library, there is a difference, right? Guys, don't mess up with the screen, otherwise I'll have to remove you from the session. Okay, so use the screen widgets carefully. All right, anyway. Uh, ठीक है, understood. All right. So when we say React, right, it's a JavaScript library and it's not a framework. We usually consider it a library, right? So there is a significant difference between these two terms, the library and the framework. You can explore it by yourself, but let me tell you in brief that library is something which is accepted by your code, right? So let's say you have written some code right over here, and now you have few lines of code, right? You have written few lines. Now, at some point, what you need is you actually want some functionality out of the box to to be used in your code. Then what you can do is you can just plug in the code written by someone else, right? And so in this case, what is happening? Your code is basically accepting React as a library, right? So your code is accepting this part from the external world written by someone else, right? And then your code can basically use it and perform anything. So usually these kinds of programs or the software written by someone else, they are usually treated as library. But there are other kind of softwares or other kind of programs such as we call them frameworks. So they what they does is they accept the developer's code, and what they do is they give you the application out of the box, right? Such as Angular. You might have heard about Angular. So they're kind of, you can think of them as a boilerplate, right? So you can just fill in your code. They have everything built into them. You can just put your code in there, and what you get out of the framework is the application directly, right? So the control of the code is actually with the framework, but in this case, in case of library, right? In case of library, the control is with the developer or with the code which developer is writing. So there's a very basic difference. Let's not go into that. Uh, let me, let's also, okay. Okay. So that's a kind of very simple difference you can imagine. Recording, I'm not sure. Maybe you'll get on YouTube. So this is getting broadcasted on YouTube. You can basically have a look there as well if you want to revise something. Okay, so let's begin. So when we say React, it's a library, right? It's a library. So library or framework, when we talk about library or framework, both the things are the code written by someone else, right? So someone has written this React library. It's a code written by someone else, some developer out there at Facebook, right? So React was basically created by Facebook, and uh, so it's a kind of code that is being written. So that is okay. Now let's talk about few more things around React, right? So it's a JavaScript library. We all know it. Let me just open the documentation so you can see it's a library for web and native user interfaces, right? So native user interfaces usually involves the mobile applications, right? Or the desktop applications as well, if you want, right? So that is fine. Now, all right. So React is basically, you can see it's the library for both, right? So it can be used to develop a web application as well as the native application, right? Right over here. So now how it can be used to create web application only, right? Because we are more interested in web application, correct? So what basically happens is, so there is a React library, right? So this is React, right? Now, if you want to use React in web, let's say, right? If you want to use React in case of, or you want to develop a web application, right? Or you can also develop a native applications. Okay. So React basically help you does both the things. Right? Let me just write it like this. Just increase the font. Okay. So, but it cannot be directly used to create web application or native application. We basically kind of need a bridge between these two. So web application, they are meant for the browsers, right? And native applications are mostly used by the operating systems such as Android and let's say iOS, right? So what we need is we need something in between which can basically act as a bridge between the browsers, the web application, and the React as a library, right? So that thing is actually known as uh, React DOM, right? So, and in this case, it is known as React Native, right? So we are in the today's session, we are more focused on this part, right? The web related stuff, how you can use React to create web application, right? So that is fine. Now, another question which arises is that why do we even need React, right? So there is a JavaScript. You can create single page application using JavaScript as well, right? So it's not like React or these frameworks have a monopoly and they can only be used to create React application, single page application. Uh, but why do we even need React? That is the first question that we should ask, right? Before even learning React or before even jumping onto the similar libraries like these, right? Uh, who is doing this? Okay. So, all right. Now, why do we even need React? What problem does it solve? So let's see. What do you think about it? Okay, just put your answers in the chat if you know what problem does actually React solves. Virtual DOM. Virtual DOM is kind of underlying concepts which is being used in React. Okay. Reusable components, virtual DOM and declarative. Things get updated without refreshing a web page. Correct? Okay. You are close to the answer, I think. Lot of it breaks the UI into small reusable components, each handling its own logic and rendering. I am not exactly clear with the React DOM. So React DOM is basically again a kind of thing which is available to basically create a connection between your browser and the React library, right? So React library cannot be directly used in your web application. So we basically need to create a kind of bridge between the web application of the browser and React, and then we can use the React features and we can basically ship the web application, right? So in order to use React in your web, basically you need the extra thing called React DOM. It's again a module. It's again a kind of package, again a code written by someone else, which you need to use or you need to put in your web application in order to run it inside the browser. So that is what React DOM you can think of. Uh, Virtual DOM is the updated part of the DOM implementation. React DOM. Correct. Allows us to write HTML JS in single file as JSX. Okay. Building fast, interactive, maintainable user interfaces. Acha. Okay. So see, when we say React, right? Uh, if you talk about React, so see, if you try to build the if you try to build a single page application by using a pure JavaScript, then you must have heard about something called DOM. What is DOM, by the way? What is DOM? You must have heard about this term DOM if you are a little bit familiar with the JavaScript and the web related stuff. So it stands for document object model, and what exactly it is nothing but one second. So it is actually nothing but a representation, a object representation of your web page, right? So for example, this is your website, right? And this is the, let's say, some header in there. Then there is some content, right? There is a footer at the end, right? So there could be a lot of elements in there, right? So there could be a nav tag, the main tag, the footer tag. Now, this whole thing, this whole HTML structure can be represented as an object, right? And this object is represented by this document object model called DOM, and it is actually nothing but a object only, right? And it can be accessible inside the uh, browser with this keyword, right? That is document. So you can just go inside the browser. If I open the browser right over here, and if I do something like document, right? So this is exactly your DOM is, right? So it's the object representation of your web page. So whatever the HTML, CSS you have written, that is being represented as an object, and that is what DOM is, right? Simple as that. So it's a real-time representation. So what does that, what do I mean by real-time representation? So that simply means that if you make any changes to this object, then those changes will again be reflected back to the web page as well, right? So if you update the document object, if you update the DOM object, then those changes will be reflected to the web page as well, right? So usually this, since your HTML, right? If you have seen HTML, HTML is a kind of tree-like structure. So there is a HTML tag at the top, then we have a body, we also have a head tag, right? So it's a tree-like structure. Let me create it quickly. HTML. So I'm just trying to explain you the basics first, so that we understand why do we exactly need React. So this is how it works. So inside HTML, there is body and head, right? So you all of you must have seen this at least in the HTML part. And then inside the body, you can have your elements such as paragraph, there could be a section, there could be unordered list, right? So you can see this HTML in itself is a tree-like structure, and hence this whole tree-like structure can be represented by this document object, and this is also a kind of tree. So if I just, if you want to see it, so I can show you that. So I can just say console.dir. So you can basically display the document object in the list format, or the you can print the key value pairs inside this document object, right? So you can see there are a lot of things, and the important property that I want to show you is the children's property, right? If I expand this, so there is this whole thing called HTML. If I expand this thing, then again I'll go to children, and you can see inside the HTML, head, body, these are the children's, right? Now, if you go to the body and if you go to the children again, so there are a lot of tags in there basically, right? So it's a tree-like structure, right? You go to HTML, from HTML, you can go to body, from body, you can go to paragraph and section and UL. It's a tree-like structure. And this is again represented by this whole document object very beautifully. And another thing to note about is if you make any changes here, those will be, uh, you know, reflected back onto the UI in real time. I hope this is clear to everyone. This part is clear, right? All right. Very good. Okay. Now this is clear. So now the problem here is when we are saying that, okay, you will update the document object, right? You will update this DOM, right? So updating a DOM is actually a costly process, right? It's not an easy stuff, right? Costly. So DOM I'm representing like a tree, okay? Uh, this is the DOM, let's say, right? Getting just a minute. So let's say if I, so let's say this is the dormitory that we have, right? It has got nodes. So you can treat them as like you can say this is your HTML, this is your body, this is your body, this is the head, let's say, and then this could be paragraph, a div, right over here, there. Then here we can have something like meta tag, a title tag inside the head, right? Something like this. So So this is the DOM, right? This is the DOM. Now, if you want to update the DOM directly, right? If you directly update the DOM, then it's a costly process, right? In terms of costly, in terms of time, it consumes a lot of time to update the DOM, and in terms of memory, right? So it's not memory efficient. If you are updating the DOM directly again and again, right? Then it costs the uh, you can say the performance of the application, right? The performance goes down in that case. So let's say, for example, you're updating the paragraph content again and again, then that means this process will actually cost a lot of time and memory, updating DOM directly, right? So that is the problem, right? This performance is the problem, right? So if we talk about the applications such as Airbnb, which has like a lot of things on their web page, right? If we talk about the applications such as Airbnb, Make My Trip, uh, right? These modern big application or these big platforms, we have to basically update a lot of things in there, right? So if you try to do these updations directly, then that will hamper the performance of the application. The UI will not be loaded properly. There will be a lag in the in loading the data to the application, to the browser, and all of that, right? So all of these problems uh, basically give rise to or at least they this basically this question of improving the performance basically gave rise to React, right? So the people at Facebook, they were also facing the same problem, and they started exploring the solution, and then they end up developing React, right? So that is how React came into picture, and the core problem it solves is this thing. So it does these updation in the very efficient way, right? So if you want to update anything inside the DOM, React basically does that in the most efficient way, right? So it gives you that guarantee that, okay, if you want to update something, then I'll do this in the most efficient way, right? So that your application is performant. We are using the least amount of memory and time to update the web page, right? So that is what the whole philosophy of React is. I hope that is clear to everyone. So now the question arises how it does it, right? How it does that updation. So it basically maintains something called virtual DOM, right? So virtual DOM is kind of a data structure. It's very similar to the real DOM that we have, which is there in your browser, which I just showed you, right? Right over here, this document, this is the DOM object. So React, what it does is it creates something called virtual DOM, right? So virtual DOM, it's a kind of lightweight implementation of your DOM only, or a lightweight implementation or a lightweight representation of your real DOM only, right? It's kind of a data structure which is there, right? Uh, just a second. All right. So let's say I'll just copy this, okay? So this can be your virtual DOM, let's say, right? This can be your virtual DOM. And so this is internally created by React. This is internally maintained by React. And now when you make any changes, right? So those changes are not directly applied onto the real DOM. What we do is we basically make those changes first in virtual DOM, right? So for example, let's say if I go here, let's say I'm updating this node, then that means that change will be done first inside the virtual DOM, and then there is the next algorithm used by React called diffing algorithm, right? So this is a built-in algorithm available in React library. uh, Algorithm, right? Let me just correct the spelling as well. Algorithm, okay. So diffing algorithm, what it does is it tries to figure out the difference between the real DOM and virtual DOM, right? So that's the job of diffing algorithm. So we basically compute the difference between these two things, right? That what is the difference? What we have? What has been changed? So let's say if we compare these two things, then React diffing algorithm will identify that okay, this part has been updated, right? Then there is the third algorithm, which is there called reconciliation algorithm, right? So I can just write reconciliation, reconciliation algorithm. So now the reconciliation algorithm, what it does is once it is detected, once it is found that, okay, this part has been updated, then reconciliation algorithm basically patch those changes, match that update to the real DOM, right? So that the real DOM is also updated. So that is the kind of things which goes in behind the scene in case of React and how it updates the UI. So these are the kind of processes which are involved. You do not need to go basically like too much into these algorithms. You just need to have a fair understanding or a simple understanding or a theoretical understanding of these steps which are involved, and these makes React an ideal choice or a choice to create single page application, because then this performance bottleneck and these issues are very nicely handled by React, right? So okay, I hope that is clear to everyone now. Okay, but changes done in DOM will be permanent. Is it like the way we can change any web page element through dev tools? Yes. So again, that's kind of in a sandbox environment. If you basically make changes directly, if you refresh the page, they will get reset and the page will be reloaded again. Reconciliation is basically applying the changes. So once it has been figured out that okay, this is the change which need to be done in the web page, so reconciliation algorithm basically apply that change to the real DOM, and it gets updated in the real DOM finally, and it is visible to the UI as well. So these are the things they are basically involved here. Okay. All right. Let's now jump into React and let's see what exactly it is. So, all right. Okay. Now, all right. So I think now you understand the basics, and now let's see a few more things. So when we talk about React, React is all about components, right? So everything in React can be treated as a component, right? So technically speaking, these components are nothing, but they are the functions. They can be represented by functions, right? So components are kind of a reusable thing, right? So you can call a function if you want, you can call it again and again and again, right? So this is how the typical component looks like. So this is actually a function, and then you can see something like HTML like structure written right over here. But this is not and HTML. We'll talk about it, what exactly it is. ठीक है, तो चलो. So, all right, let's first go and create the React application. So creating a React application involves a lot of steps, right? You need to download few things, install few packages. As I said, uh, you you need to have a React library and React DOM and do a lot of configuration. So which usually is a time-taking process. But if you want, this can be done very quickly by using a lot of tools out there, right? So one of the important tool which is there is, or a very famous tool which is out there is something called Vite, right? So you can just write Vite React and you will get this first thing, right? Getting started. You can just jump on to, you can just scroll a little bit, and this is the command that you can write. So you can use whatever the tool that you're using to install. So I'm using NPM. I'll be using NPM throughout. So you can just write this command. This can help you bootstrap the React application very quickly. So what I'll do is, so I'm inside this YouTube folder, and I'll just say npm create Vite latest. So it says, okay, install the packages. What I'll do is, so it is asking me for the project name. So I'll just say first React app, uh, first React app, right? And then we can select the framework that we want to use, right? So I'm gonna use React, and I'm gonna use the JavaScript. So you can see the project has been created, and we can just, if I list the project, you can see there is a project created, and I can just cd into this project. And what I can do is I can run the next command, npm install, right? So the first command was this one. Maybe I can just note it down here. So the steps involved. So this is the first command that we have. And the next command, once the project has been created, you can just run npm install. npm install. And the third command could be npm run dev to start the development server. So you can see the installation is in progress. And once it is done, we'll see the project created. So it has been done. Let's open this in VS Code. So you can use whatever the way you prefer. I have just opened it in VS Code, the application that we created, that is first React app. And you can see the project structure and few files have been automatically created by this command, that is this Vite, right? Which framework we have to select? React. So you have to select React, and then you can select JavaScript for now, as the language. And you can just say npm install and npm run dev. That's it. But make sure that you are inside that project folder, right? You should be inside this first React app in my case. Do it. Slow down. Okay. I think it's not that fast. Okay, I'm giving you time. CRA is deprecated. Yes, CRA is RIP. It's not maintained by React anymore, or the React developers. So you can use Vite. Where to write the first command? So you can write that command inside your terminal if you are on a system like Mac or Unix based system. If you are using Windows, you can basically use git bash. So the git bash you might be using for other purpose, you can use that and install, run that command. CRA is a create React app. It was a tool very similar to Vite used to create React applications. It's not supported or not recommended anymore. Can use terminal CMD in Windows too. Yes, you can use CMD as well. Correct. All right. Okay, be quick, guys. Let's now see the folder structure. So you can see there are a lot of things, right? Obviously, I'm not gonna explain everything in there. So this is the node modules folder, the public folder, SRC folder, git ignore for ignoring the files to be published from GitHub or on GitHub. ESLint is for basically enforcing few rules while writing the code. So it's a linting tool. Linting tools are usually used to basically detect the anomaly in your code, right? Or and not an anomaly, but uh, so that you can basically write the good coding styles and all of that, right? So it's for that. Index.html, we'll talk about it. Package log.json, these are regular files which gets created whenever you install any package, right? Package.json is the heart of this React project. It contains all the dependencies. So you can see right over here in the dependencies list, we have React as well as React DOM, right? So this is what I was talking about, React DOM, right? So this is what exactly we need in order to build or in order to basically plug in React inside the web application. Uh, okay. Sir, please repeat the step for first React app. Guys, you just need to run this and follow this. That's it. Okay. Okay, let's see. Now, if I expand the source folder, you will see there is this thing called app. So this is literally your whole React app. And main is the entry point of your React application. So this is the first file which gets executed when you basically starts the React application. So that is what entry point means. So what I'll do is I'll just fire up the development server now for my React application. So in order to run the or to basically work with the React application, you need to start this development server. And this gets started usually at this port, which is a kind of default port for the local host, right? 5173. So you can see this is the React application which is running. This is the React development server which is running, right? So this is the main.jsx is the entry point, right? So this is from where your app starts. You can see we have written app right over here. So let me first remove this strict mode. We don't need it for now, but it's recommended. At the end, you can bring it back and use it. Okay. All right. Now, what does this mean? So this basically means you are basically calling a component. So whenever we write something like this, so I told you that in React, we basically create components, or React is kind of a component based library. So let me just perform a cleanup first of all here. Let's remove all of this. We don't need it. We don't need it. Okay, let me remove this as well. So you can see this is barely a simple bare minimum function that you might have seen while writing JavaScript, right? Very simple function. Now this function can basically return something called JSX, right? We call it JSX. It's a very similar thing to HTML, right? So what I can do is I can just say div, and inside the div, I can say h1, and I can say for example, my first React app, my first React app. So now what does this mean? So we have a function, and this function, whenever you call it, it returns this thing. this div, this JSX value, right? So this is actually, you can see when I'm calling it, so this is actually being returned, right? So I can just put it here, right? And this is actually rendered by React, right? This is actually rendered by React inside the element having the ID of root. So you can see document.getElement by ID will grab the element having the ID of root. And what is that element? That is nothing but this thing. So if you go to index.html, this is the page which gets loaded. So whenever you first loads or whenever you visit localhost 5173, the first page which gets loaded is this index.html file, right? And what we are doing right over here is inside this div root, right? So let me just show you here as well. So if I go to elements, you can see this div having the ID of root, and then other things are basically getting printed here, right? So so what basically happens is whatever is being rendered here, it goes inside this div, right? Having the ID of root, which is inside index.html, right? So that's fine. If I save this, you can see my first React tab getting printed. And if you want, you can just remove the default styles from here and from the app as well. So these are CSS file, regular CSS file. And you can now see the very, very simple, very, very raw React application that we have created. So we are returning this thing. Now, what is this thing? Let's try and understand that. What is this thing? So this is not HTML. This is actually known as something called JSX, right? So, or JavaScript XML. So it's, what do I mean by that? So let me just tell you that. So you can just think of this as, let's say, JSX. Sorry, this is JavaScript, and you add few more things, few more capabilities to JavaScript. Then what you get is you get something called JSX, right? You get something called JSX. So it's the extension to JavaScript only, right? It is very, so see, the thing is, the common sense right over here is this is the function, right? And you cannot write HTML in a JavaScript function, right? That's not possible, right? You cannot write HTML in JavaScript file, right? Everyone knows it, right? So it's very similar to writing, let's say, if you say I have a C++ file and you are writing a Java code in C++ file, that's not possible, right? You cannot do that. So similarly, in your JavaScript file, you cannot write HTML, right? But this looks like an HTML, right? This is very similar to HTML. The elements are also very same, right? The H1, the div. So what exactly is this? So this is JSX, and this gets converted to JavaScript behind the scene, right? How? So React. So when I have installed the uh, uh, when I have created this project, then behind the scene in React, if I just expand this, there is this thing called Babel, right? If you see right over here in node modules, there is something called Babel. So Babel is actually a JavaScript interpreter or JavaScript in yeah, you can call it JavaScript interpreter. So I'll just show you that Babel IO JS. Let's see this one. Babel.js.io. So Babel.js is what? It's a JavaScript compiler or interpreter you can think of, right? It can compile the high-level JavaScript such as JSX into lower-level JavaScript. So we are writing JSX. Now this can be compiled down to the pure JavaScript by something called Babel, right? Babel can do that. And how it does is, let me show you that as well. So instead of writing this syntax, right? Let me put app here. So I'm rendering app. So this simply means whatever is being written by the app component that will be placed, that will be rendered by the React, right? Inside this root. So app is basically returning this JSX, right? So now if I just grab this JSX and if I go here right? Let me clear this. And if I put this JSX here, so you can see we are getting something JavaScript equivalent of this JSX, right? So this is JSX, this is the JavaScript equivalent of it, right? So let me now, instead of writing this JSX, what I can do is I can just put this thing and let me return this, right? Let me format and so you can see I'm not writing JSX now. I'm returning a JavaScript, right? So this is the kind of JSX function. It is accepting few arguments, and that is what we are doing, right? And we are getting this function from the uh, React itself, right? Now, if I save this, you can see. Let me. So you can see this is still treated as an H1 inside the div, right? If I go here, if I expand this, you can see inside the div of root, we have a div and we have a H1. So the main takeaway right over here is that this is not an HTML. This is actually known as JSX, and this is how it can be written in JavaScript, right? So this is what happens exactly behind the scene when you write JSX or HTML like things inside the components, right, in React. So which syntax do you think is more easy, this one or this one? What do you think? Which should we adopt? Which is more easy or more developer friendly? You can say, right? Which is more easy, writing this or writing this? If I give you a complex structure, will you be able to write this? No, this is not something which is you know very, very user friendly, right? It's very complicated. You will have to take care of a lot of things. So hence, JSX syntax is kind of adopted, right? So that is what JSX is. I hope this is clear to everyone what exactly the JSX is. Okay. All right. Can we write multiple divs? Yes, you can write multiple divs as well. Okay. Okay. So this is fine. Let's now move on and let's see a few more things. Yes, I have deleted the CSS file, not the file, but the CSS which was there in them. Okay. All right. Now that's okay. Now what I can do is let's see few more things. So let's see few more things around JSX only, right? So for example, if I want to write a JavaScript inside JSX, right? So for example, you have something like const, let's say a random number. So let's say a random number, and that could be, let's say I want to print a random number between math dot random. I want a random number between 1 to 10. So this is how I can write it. I can just multiply it with 10 because we know that math.random basically gives you the number between 0 to 1, where 1 is not inclusive. And if you multiply it with 10 and you take a floor, you get an integer between 0 to 10, 0 to 9. And if you do plus 1, the range will be basically upgraded from 0 to 9 to 1 to 10, right? So this will essentially give you the random number between 1 to 10. Now, let me write an H2 here. So I can simply say my random number. And here I want to print the value of my random number. So what I can do is you can inject the JavaScript inside JSX by using curly braces, right? So if I do something like 1 plus 2 plus 3, so this is actually treated as a valid JavaScript, and this is actually evaluated by React, right? So if you go here, you can see we are getting 6 because that is what the sum is, right? And if I want, I can place this variable as well. This will be evaluated again, right? So you can see if I refresh the random number, because the function is getting called again and again, the random number is getting generated again and again, and hence we are getting the new random number each time. So this is how you place anything in there, right? So that's okay. I think let's now, what I'll do is I'll create few more components, and to create components, what I'm doing is I'm just creating a folder so that we can place all the components at one place. So now what I'll do is I'll say, okay, so what should we build? So we can have something like a product, okay? Product.jsx. So your component should start with JSX. Sorry, your component should have an extension with JSX. Now, you can just write RAFCE, or you can write your own function like this, or an arrow function, something like this, const product. And this should return some JSX, right? Return, and it should be export default product, right? Because that is what the component is. It is nothing but a function. It can be represented by a function, right? Now, let's say this function will have few things, right? So figure, and so I'm going to represent the product, and what I'm going to do is the product should have an image and a kind of caption, very similar to that you might have seen on the e-commerce applications, right? So I'll have an image, and I can grab the image URL from here. This is the, so Unsplash is a kind of open source for the images. You can get free images here. And let me just search for MacBook, and I can just have image right over here. So I have pasted the image address. And the next thing is the fig caption. So we can have H2, let's say the name of the product. So that would be MacBook Air. And then the price, price would be, let's say $300. We can have a button as well. Buy now. We can have a short description as a paragraph, right? This is a small description about a MacBook, like that, right? So this is what the figure is, right? This is what, if you call the product component, this is what is going to be returned, right? So this is okay. Now what I'll do is inside my app, let me just remove this as well. I'll say return, and inside my app, we can have a section, right? And inside the section, what I'll do is I'll have the product from the component. So you can just import it like this, and you can place it. So what I'm doing is I'm calling a product component inside my app. So this will be displayed here now. So if we go here, so you can see the product. So obviously the image is too large. We can handle the image for now by having the width, and I can say 200 pixels. I can say 200 px, or this would be 300. Let's say this is fine. Okay. So this is my one product, right? Now, if I want to reuse this component, right, I can have multiple products, and you can see there are multiple products created, right? You can have the basic styles around it if you want, right? So that's okay. I think for now, we can avoid these styles. We are doing it along with you. Okay. Take your time. We'll come to it, Ayush. Figure, user defined, or reserve keyword. Figure is not a user defined, it's a valid JSX element, right? It's a HTML, if you see, It's one of the semantic element that you have in HTML. Semantic element HTML, or so you can go to MDN and see it. So this is what figure is, right? So all the HTML elements which are there, they are also available as a semantic. They are also available as a JSX element. So since this is a HTML semantic element, this is also available in JSX, and it does the same thing, which it does in HTML. ठीक है? Can you describe software engineers and web developers? Uh, wow, what a question. Software engineers and web developers. कौन बताएगा भाई? Why do you, by the way, why do you need this difference? What do you want to do with this difference? See, ultimately, software engineer is a very, very generic term, or a very, very generic, uh, uh, you know, you can say the description of the role, right? Meaning a software engineer can be a mobile developer. He could be a, you know, he could be a web developer, he could be a mobile developer, the DevOps engineer, the quality assurance related engineers. They are also kind of software engineers, right? You could be working on Web 3.0, you could be working on machine learning, you could be a simple backend engineer, right? So it's a very, very generic term used to refer the people working in the software world, or working on the software working in the software industry, right? So we call them software engineers because they build softwares in one or the other form. Web developers are mostly concerned with the web related stuff, such as the web front-end developers. Web uh, front-end developers would be there. They mostly deal with the browser related stuff, right? Such as React, Angular, and all of these things. So that is the kind of difference. The difference itself lies in your in the name itself, actually. Okay, how to add Tailwind CSS in this project. So you can quickly add that Tailwind. So see, these, make yourself comfortable with the documentation. First of all, I would recommend, right? So whatever the framework out there, it's very easy to integrate, right? Always. So most of the framework, they are not that painful, which we usually think, right? So you can just follow the installation steps, right? So you can see install Tailwind, you can install these libraries, you can add Tailwind White plugin to your white configuration, right? So we must be having the white config, and herein you can use this thing and import Tailwind CSS and run dev, and that's it, I think. So these are the steps you can follow and you can edit. Not a very big deal. Very big deal. Okay. Okay, let's go back to what we were discussing, and let's continue there quickly. ठीक है, shard cn और tailwind अभी डिस्कस नहीं करेंगे ये सब, ठीक है? Let's discuss them later on. Can you clarify this? It's like the way we can change any web page element through web tools. हाँ, yes, correct. So DOM is very similar to that only, right? You can change the content of the web page directly from the DOM, right? So if you do it directly, then that would be a problem, right? That might be inefficient, right? In order to offload that guarantee that your updation and your re-rendering or updation of your UI is efficient, then you can use things like React and Angular. They does the same job. You have to. I think I'm you guys, maybe you are not familiar with the JavaScript. That could be the reason, right? Unless we have just discussed about the basic stuff, right? So I've just created a simple component in there and I'm just using it. That's it. No rocket science in there, guys. Take your time. Okay, chalo. So let's see. So we have the products now, right? Products getting displayed. Let me put a border also. So there are multiple ways to do that. What I can do is I can create something called, uh, so basically I can create a folder first, product, and I can place this product.jsx inside the product folder. And inside this, I can create one more file called product.module.css. So see, this file, this is the module CSS file, and this is the regular CSS file. So the problem with the regular CSS file is that the styles get bleeded outside, right? So that simply means if you have written some style inside this file, then this is kind of globally applicable. It's globally available. It can affect other components, other things as well. But if you make it module, if you use CSS modules such as this product.module.css, then it is kind of scoped to the component in which you are importing or using it, right? So the styles written in this module.css file, they are scoped to this file only, and they do not affect the outside world, right? So it's kind of better concept, right? So what I can do is I can just say product. I can define a product class and I can have a simple border. I can say 1px solid hash ccc. So it's a kind of gray border. I can give 2 pixel if you want, 2px, and I can give a little bit of border radius. So I'm not using a library as of now. I'm just trying to add these styles quickly like this. So now what you can do is you can say import styles from dot slash product dot module dot css dot css, and I can call it styles, right? So what I'm doing is whatever the style which are there, right? So this is a class. So what basically happens is when you basically import modules, so this it is basically exported. The whole CSS is actually exported as a object, and in which this act as a key, and these things act as a value, right? So it becomes kind of key value pair, right? So what I can now do is I can just say class name, because we are writing JavaScript and class is actually a reserved keyword in JavaScript, and hence you cannot write class. So therefore class name. So then what I can do is I can say style dot product. So that is what my class name is. So what I'm doing is I'm accessing the styles by using the key, that is product, which is coming from the class name. So if I save this, uh, let's see what we are missing. Styles dot product. Okay, let's see. 1 second. So we have app. That's okay. This is also fine. Maybe there is a problem with the import, right? So this should be fine now. All right. So you can see we are getting a border here. So we can restrict the border to 300 pixels, right? Like this. So we can also have a little bit of padding of 1 rem, right? So you can now see these are kind of products that we have created, very basic styles and nothing else. The problem was the import. So basically I moved the component inside the product folder. So this could not be updated actually. So now what we have is the product components, product folder. Inside the product folder, we have two things, the product.jsx and product.module.css, two things. Okay, that's it. Okay. Now, what I can do is I can add few more properties. I can have like few more styles, but let's not go into that. Let's see events now, right? How does event works? And we'll try and understand few more concepts, and then we will wrap up the session. Okay. Let's now. So if you see right over here, this is MacBook Air, this is also MacBook Air. In an ideal application, in a real world application, uh, each product should be unique. Each product should be different, right? So what we should do is we should basically have different products, right? So, but in our case, product is kind of hard coded, which is incorrect, right? So we should not hard code the product because it should be reusable, right? It should be reusable. Now, what I can do is I can basically pass the data when I'm calling the component. So here, when the component is getting called, I can basically pass the data, and these data can be passed like you you write an attributes, right? So what I can do is I can just go right over here is, and I can simply say title, and title could be, let's say, MacBook Air, and then we can have price could be, let's say, 100, and then we can have the image could be the image URL. We'll have that finally. And we can also have description, right? So let's call it description like this, right? So instead of, let me just have two products for now. For the demonstration purpose, we can add more later on. So if you want to pass the data inside the component whenever you are calling it, you can pass it like this. So title will be passed, price, image, description, and they will be passed, and we can capture them inside a object, and we can call it props object. So if I just print the props, and if I just go here, you can see the object. We are receiving an object inside product.js line number 5. So at line number 5 inside product.js, we are getting the objects, right? So these things, these attributes, they gets converted into an object, and we call this object a props. We call them props. The term comes from the properties, right? So we call it props. So these are all props. Title is a prop, price is a prop, image is a prop, description is a prop, right? So now we can basically utilize these props to have the dynamic data in the component, right? So instead of this hard-coded value for the image URL, let's simply say props dot image, right? Similarly, instead of this, I can say props dot title, right? This would be props dot price. This could be a description that I want to be here, and I can say props dot description, and button now, buy now button will be same, right? So we are receiving whatever the props we are receiving, we will be utilizing them to display the data in the component, right? So the component will be created uh, when this thing is called, right? So the first component will be created with this data, and the second would be created with this data. Let me just save this, and let me pass the image URL as well, again from Unsplash. So let's go in there. Let's grab the images. So we can have this as the image. This is fine. And we can say, so I can say MacBook Pro and MacBook Air. Save. And if you go here, let's just refresh. So if you see right over here, we are getting the different data now, right? Let's change the price as well. Let's make it 200. You can see we are getting the different data now, right? And the component is getting reused, right? Now, I think you might be able to understand this thing, right? Create user interfaces. So we are utilizing the component and it's a reusable component basically, right? So these are props, right? We have understood what exactly the props are. Now, okay, okay. All right. So now let's do one more thing. Okay. I'll just stop there only, right? Meaning, let's add one small change, and that would be uh, a good addition here. So what I can do is, see, if I go on and add a few more products, then again kind of I'm hard coding things, right? Again, I'm hard coding, at least I'm hard coding this component because I just have two product in there, right? So this is again the we are hard coding the components, right? So instead, what we should have is we should be dynamically able to pass or create these products as per the data which we are getting. So for example, let's say you call some API, right? So when you basically call the APIs, so let me show you what you get, right? When you call the API, so there is this API called fake store, right? When you call it, you get the data like this in JSON format, right? So you get title, price, description, category, image. You get the data like this. So what now, if this data changes, your UI should also be adaptable to that, right? It should adapt to that change. So what we can do is, let's say we have the products uh, array, and inside the products array, we have the properties such as title, and that could be, let's say this thing, image could be this. So I'm now creating a data array basically for the products, right? And similarly, we can have price. Price would be 100. Let me have comma here and description. So that would be this only. So you will have to revise these things anyway, right? Maybe I'll push this code to GitHub and I'll provide you the links. You can just have a look as well, right? So it's an array of object, right? Let's create the second object. So that should be air, should be 200. Image URL could be this one. So just assume that this data is being received from somewhere, from the external call, from the API or something like that. And now we have to display the product based on this data. So that is what we are doing. Let's have one more. Let's say Mac Mini. It should be 300. We can have the Mac Mini image as well. Mac Mini. Okay. Copy image address. By the way, I'm not sponsoring this video on behalf of Apple. Just a use case, or I'm just demonstrating it for the educational purpose. So now you have this data, right? And you have the properties, title, image, price, and description, which is again required by the our product component as a props. So now what I can do is I can basically create a list of these things, right? So what I can do is I can say products dot map. So this is the map method. So I'll iterate over each object using the map method, and I'll call it a product, and I'm going to return something out of it, right? And since this is JavaScript, it should be inside curly braces. And what I want is I want to return a product component, right? And inside the product component, there should be something called title, and it should be equals to the product dot title, right? Let me just bring it to the next line. The price should be product dot price. Description should be product dot description, and the image should be product dot like this. So what I'm doing is, so I'm iterating over each product. So map is basically a method which is used to transform the array, right? So we have this array. Now I want to transform this array into array of product component, right? So we can use map method. So map method first will get this object. It will create a product component and will return it, and then goes for the second one, then the third one. So we get array of product component with different data, right? And if I go right over here now, they can see we are getting all the three products. Now, if the next product comes in, right? So let's say you add few more products in the database, right? So you can see automatically all the products are automatically displayed, because we are not restricting ourselves to one or two products. We are instead, what we are doing is whatever we are getting as the data, we are iterating and we are dynamically creating it. So this is again the advantage that we get when we write or we build the application using React. So it helps us handle the dynamic data in a very beautiful way, right? If you would have to do the same thing using HTML, pure HTML, then it would be a painful process, right? But here it's a cakewalk, right? It's very easy to do this. So I hope this is clear to everyone, this part, how we are rendering it. So map is basically what it is doing is it is taking the object, right? So this function inside the map will get called, and this function accepts the item which is there in the list, and it returns it basically, right? So that's how it works. You can just uh, get a hang of this right now, but later on you can explore it when you have time, or maybe after the class or after the session you can explore it by yourself. No, it does not modify the original array, right? It's a non-destructive method. Only through map we can do this. So, actually, a good question. Not exactly. So, it's all about iterating through the array, right? You can use other stuff as well, right? You just need an array. The output should be an array. Okay. So, finally, basically, you have to create an array. That's it. All right. How many of you are coding with me? Are you finding this helpful? Is it easy for you to understand? Is it making sense? Yes? All right. Missing some code. Yes, you might be missing few of the things. Okay. You can just add upon those things separately, right? By yourself. Once the class is over, I'll put this code. You can just have a look at it. Okay. Okay. I hope this is fine. Now let me add a last piece. Let me add a last bit for the today's session. Okay, let me show you here. This is what the product component is. Okay. All right, let's move ahead and let's see the last bit of it, last piece of it, which is very, very interesting. And trust me, this is the most interesting part of React. And let's see it now. So just think of a situation. So what I'm trying to now do is I'm trying to introduce events. So what are events? Events are kind of actions that you can basically put, right? Framer motion. Yeah, you can use it. There's a library. If you want, you can use it, right? You can just install it, start using it. Anyway, so let's now see events, right? Think of a situation. What I want to do now do is if someone clicks on this, right? If someone clicks on this card, this product card, what I want is I want to change the name of this thing to something else, right? That is what I want. That is my requirement, right? Which I want to solve for. So how will you do that? How will you listen to the event, or how basically event works in React is very simple. What you just need to do is, so for example, you need to attach an event to this card. So this card is nothing but a product. So what you can now do is you can just say on click, on click. Let's say I want to listen to the click event, so I can write on click. If you have something you want to add some other event such as on hover, on mouse down, on mouse over, you can add those event as well. But for now, for simplicity, let's go with the on click event. So now what goes inside this curly braces? So here we write a handler function. Handler function is the function which gets executed whenever an event is occurred, right? So I can simply say click handler, right? Or let's say product click handler, right? So this is the function that I want to execute. So you just need to pass the reference of this function. Never call it here. This is the wrong thing, right? You should not call it. You should just pass it as a reference, and it will automatically be called by the click listener, right? Internally. So hence the name handler. So we usually add handlers as a suffix to those functions which are not called directly by us, but called by something else internally, such as on click in this case. So this is okay. Now let me just put a console log statement and let me just show you this is working actually. Clicked. I'll just say clicked. Uh, so so there is this warning. You can fix this warning quickly by adding. So whenever you create a list of components, what you need to do is you need to pass a key prop inside the component, which is basically required by React to maintain its internal states. So this should be kind of unique thing. So what I'll do is I'll say index. I'll just pass the index because that's the unique thing that we can get inside the map method. Or you can have the identifier available. If there is any identifier which is unique, you can pass it as a key right over here. That should silence the warning. Now coming back to the on-click handler. So if I click on this, you can see we are able to print this. If I click here, I'm able to get the console log statement 3 times because I have clicked 3 times. If you click more, you'll get console log printed onto the console. Now, what I want is when you click on this, I want to update this, right? I want to update this name, let's say to something like anonymous. I want to change it to anonymous, for example. How will I do that? Okay. So we have the event in place. I just want to update this, right? And this is nothing but the title. So I can also write this thing. So let's say since we are going to update this, I'll declare the variable with let, and I'll say title should be nothing but props.title. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the title from the props and I'm initializing this variable with the initial value that we are getting inside the props as the title. And instead of directly using props.title, I'll use title variable. It is same, right? Instead of directly using it, I'm kind of using it via variable. I'm first storing it inside the variable and then I'm basically utilizing it. Now, inside the product click handler, what I want is whenever someone clicks on the figure, I want to change this title to anonymous. Anonymous, right? Like this. And let me just print this so that you can actually verify that this has been updated. Let me print the value of title as well. So if you go right over here, if I click, you can see we are getting this console log statement and the title has been updated. The value of the title, value of this variable inside h2 has been updated to anonymous, but that thing is not repainted onto the UI, right? It's not getting repainted onto the UI. Why? Why it's not getting repainted or why it's not getting updated to the UI? What is the problem here? Can anyone tell me what is the problem? We have updated the title to anonymous and same we can see in the console, it's getting updated, but the change is not repainted onto the UI. It's not visible onto the UI. That updation is not there, right? So this is, let me tell you, this is because this title is an ordinary variable to React, right? It's nothing. It has nothing to do. If you even change it or do whatever with it, it has nothing to do whatever is being, displayed to the UI or whatever is visible to the UI, right? So it has nothing to do with that. There is no connection. React does not bother about the updation of this title variable. React does not care about it, right? If you want React to monitor this variable, right? To monitor this variable so that it can basically, if it gets changed, we want to update the UI as well. If you want to tell this to React, right? That React, please take this variable and monitor it. And if this gets changed, please update the UI as well. If you want to say this, how will you do this? So this can be done in React via something called hooks. Hooks are nothing. Technically, they are the functions only, right? They are the functions. You can write your own hooks as well, right? So what we can do is we can import a hook called useState from React, right? So React library provides this hook called useState. It is used to create these special variables, which are basically, we call them states. These are special variables, they are being monitored by React. Whenever you make changes to those variables, the changes automatically reflected to the UI as well. Okay. All right. So what I can now do is I can simply use this function, use state hook. So since it's a function, you can call it like a function. So I'm calling it like this, right? Priyank, please don't use these Zoom tools to write anything. Okay. All right. So I'm calling it like a function. Now what you can do is when you're calling it like a function, you can pass the value that you want to have inside the variable as the initial value, right? So what it does is the use state function, this hook basically returns an array, and that array in the first position contains the state variable. We can call it title. And the next thing that we get is the function, the state updating function provided by the use state hook. So use state hooks not only give you the variable, the state, which is monitored by the React, it also gives you the function using which you can update the state. So you cannot update this state directly like this. You should always use the state updating function to perform any change in this state, right? So instead of this, what I'll do is I'll simply say set title and I'll set the title to anonymous for now. Anonymous, right? like this, right? Let's go right over here. So now you can see this title is not a normal variable. It's a variable. It's a state variable monitored by React. And this is the initial value that we are putting it here. You can see the MacBook Pro and everything, whatever the expected stuff is there, right? Now, if I click, so what we are doing is we are setting the title as anonymous. So this is the value that I want to set inside this title. And since this is monitored by React, the title will be updated. And since the title is updated, the component re-rendering will take place. So this evaluation or this function will be executed again, and the this will basically make the UI change, or this will basically leads to the updation in the UI as well, right? So if I click here, you can see the UI has been updated, right? The variable was updated as well as the UI has been repainted. And you can see the state of this component is independent of the state of this component. So whatever it has, whatever the state which has been updated for this component, it's not, it's very different, or it has nothing to do with the states in the other component. So each component has its own states, right? So let me show you this. If you want, what you can do is, uh, let me show you. So let me open this React application here. And what you can do is you can basically install something called React Dev Tools. So it's a kind of Chrome extension that you can install. You can just, you will see the installation or add to Chrome button here. You can install it. And what you can now do is you can just open this and you can click on components. You can just open the developer tools. So that extension will add this tab. So you can see we have an app, and inside our app, we have product. So first product, second product. And inside the first product, these are the details, right? So you can see, if you see the first product, the state is this. This is the state, the name, basically, right? So if I click here, you can see the state has been updated to anonymous, right? Similarly, if you talk about this second product, you can see the state here. If I click here, the state will be updated for this product, right? Similarly, if I go for the third one, so this is the third one, Mac Mini, right? It has got this name. If I click here, you can see that it has been updated, right? So this is how states work. And if you want your UI to be responsive of some change, then you should make that variable a state variable, and that will be monitored by React. And React will make sure that if you update that variable, the UI is repainted or updated. I hope this is clear to everyone, this part. Can we have a look to update the style such as colors or VG? Okay, I hope this is clear to everyone. Why do we need use state hook here and what purpose it solves? Okay, all right. So now I can have your questions, right? If you have questions around whatever we have done, the floor is yours. You can ask the question and I'll try and answer them. And meanwhile, I'll just put this whole code on GitHub so that you can access it. So I can say GFG workshop and React. So the code has been published to the, uh, one second, data status. So let me publish this. First React app and then git push origin name. right? So it should be there now. I'll put the link in the description as well. Okay, we have it. Let me put the link in the chat. You can refer this later on. Okay. So this is my GitHub basically. This is my GitHub profile. You can follow here. You can follow me and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, right, for referrals and all. If you are interested, I need YouTube link for all the recording, please. So YouTube link would be provided on, I think, GFG website, right? Should be weeks for weeks. So I think you can get it from here. Okay. My LinkedIn would be 1 second now. I'll show you. So this is my LinkedIn profile. If you want, you can connect with me. Uh, okay, that's it. And if you're interested in the courses, so we have courses around web development. Uh, I'm taking the courses around MERN stack at GFG. If you're interested in the online courses, you can join my course, wherein we will be like, dissecting the whole web development part, the whole web development course very beautifully into, right from very basics such as HTML and HTML, JavaScript, and right from there going into the advanced topic in backend development, right? And finally creating our own full stack application, right? So I'll show you the application that we are building these days in the course. So this is the application that we are building. It will take some time to get the data because it's on a free server, right? The API response is slow. We'll talk about it, how you can fetch the data, maybe in the upcoming sessions, maybe tomorrow, right? So you can join the tomorrow's and day after tomorrow's session. We'll be having 3 sessions around these things, okay? Yeah, I can take up your doubts for some time if you have any. So we are building kind of this application. If you can see, there are products. If you click on the products, you get the products here. You can go and add reviews, right? Let's say my second review. So you can see the alerts as well. Uh, So this is basically a kind of MERN stack application that is what we build in the course, right? You can add new products, you can log out, you can have the authentication system in place. The sign up is there, right? So if you are interested or if you want to add these things to your resume, you can check out the course at GFG, okay? The next free session on these things would be tomorrow and day after tomorrow, the same time, starting 8 p.m. Let me now take few of your question and then we will close the discussion for today. How come I am not able to see Babel in node modules? It should be there. Uh, we get the title in on-click function and using how we can update the product title instead of using hooks. Yes, we are almost done for today. You can drop off if you want. If you have any doubts or you want to discuss anything more, let me know. I'll try and answer your questions. I have shared the repo link. You can check that. Is hooks or use state are same? Use state is one of the hook. You can write your own custom hooks as well, right? So if let's say if I want to create my own hook, maybe we can do that in tomorrow's class, tomorrow's session. So yes, you can create your own hooks as well. Technically speaking, they are the functions only. Does the repo have readme? No, it will not have a readme or a steps. Okay, it would be a simple thing, but I think by looking at the video and the stuff that we have discussed, you will be able to recall the things that we have done, because that those connecting dots are there in your mind. I believe if you have attended the session properly. Okay, so talking about the hooks, so there are multiple hooks which are available. If you go to the reference and if you go to hooks, so right over here, so these are basically the hooks, right? But not all the hooks are used a lot. There are actually three hooks which are majorly used. So one is the use state hook that we have seen, another one is the use effect hook, and then the use ref hook. These are very, very popular hooks that you can use. Okay. How filter categories are made means what would be the logic? Filter categories, there could be different approaches depending upon the problem statement you are solving or the kind of behavior you want. I'll have to look upon the whole thing. Otherwise, it's a simple. If you talk about the backend perspective, then you just need to send back that once it is selected, the filter is selected, and you submit or you apply the filter. You basically make a call to the backend. Backend basically capture those keywords and make a DB query to fetch the details and display it back. Does this workshop contain backend also? Not sure. Let's see how it goes. It's just a three sessions, so I think there would be a lot of constraint. If I go into backend, then you will not be able to grasp other things. So I don't want to just rush into the things without making you understand what exactly that is, right? Use context is another hook. It is majorly used to pass the data globally. So sometimes what happens is in React application, you need to pass the data, right? So there are multiple ways to do that. So one is using props, right? So you can do this, but let's say there are a lot of components and you need that data in multiple components, right? So passing prompts will be a headache, right? And it's not recommended because you will end up having long props chain as well, right? Which is not good for your application. So hence what we can do is we can basically create a context. Context is something, an object, which is globally available in your application. So it can be directly accessible, it can be directly accessed in any component. You do not need to pass that data via props. But if it is a context, it is globally applicable or globally available in your app. You can directly access it and use it wherever you want. Okay. Okay. Hoping to get some glimpse of backend. Uh, we'll see if I get time, because there are a lot of constraint in there. Using module.css is always good. See it. I'm not. It's not. See, making a kind of extreme statements in case of software engineering or in terms of programming style is sometime can be wrong, right? So it's not always good. It depends upon the usability, right? If you want that, okay, your style should be scoped to the component and they should not bleed outside, then definitely you can go with the module CSS. If you want to, if you are thinking of using your classes globally, then definitely module is not going to do that. You will have to use the simple CSS files. So it's like that. It depends again, I'll say, upon the use case. It's not about good or bad. It's about what is the use case. Write code using class component. Class components are not recommended by the the React team, or it's not recommended these days. So we'll not go into that probably. Correct. Functions of each file that's there in the project folder. ESLint. ESLint, as I told you, is basically a linting tool, right? So it's not just about React. ESLint can be added to any JavaScript based project, right? So it's a linting tool. Linters allows us to basically help us detect the problems. They analyze the code. They basically gives you the warning that, okay, you are doing this thing as wrong and all of that. Package log.json is the file which basically contain the information about node modules. So like which all packages, what are there, which all packages are installed, what are their versions, right? And all of that. So it basically contains information about node modules folder. Whatever is there in the node modules is being tracked by the package log.json. Then package.json is the heart of your project, the JavaScript project. So it contains like what all dependencies are there, what the project is there, what are the dev dependencies, what are the production dependencies, what are the scripts. So it is the most important file, right? So that is what package.json is. Vite config is related to Vite related configuration because we are using it as a tool. Ultimately, this thing is more on the development side. This is not meant for production. Tailwind, I already discussed. Okay. Props and states. So states are basically these kind of special variables. So if the state changes, the components get re-rendered. But when we talk about props, they are used to pass data to the components. So for example, if you want to pass some data to the component, you can pass it via props. So title is a prop, price is a prop, description is a prop. So it can be accepted as a props as a parameter in the component, and you can then use it like this props.price and description. So I hope this is it, guys. Let's continue from here in the tomorrow's session. And yes, please do revise all of these things. Maybe I'll discuss few interesting and very good stuff in the tomorrow's class. Let's connect tomorrow and uh, add more things on this. I hope you understood all of these things. It was helpful. That's it for today. Bye bye.